Ian Davidson.
Is the Prime Minister aware that many of us who are in favour of a referendum on Lisbon before it is signed intend to remain in favour of a referendum on Lisbon even if it is signed? And would he agree that those who capitulate and decide to change their position simply because it is signed are in fact betraying not only their own principles but the policies of the British people?
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition has given a cast iron guarantee that he will have a referendum, and it's for him to answer to us as to what he's now going to do.
Mr. David Pescademary.
Mr. Speaker, does the Prime Minister recall that at the start of the reform process, European leaders were instructed to create a Europe closer to its citizens? Does he think that the spectacle of EU heads of government engaged in private bargaining sessions to hand out between themselves the unelected jobs in Europe is likely to either increase or diminish the public's respect for the European Union? Which is it?
Mr. Speaker, we know where he comes from. He's against the European Union altogether. I have to say to them that at the formal sessions, which lasted many, many hours, we discussed jobs, we discussed growth, we discussed climate change, we discussed foreign policy issues, and I have to say to him, what he suggests was being discussed in the corridors was not discussed in the Council. We discussed the issues that matter to the people of Europe.
Mr. Elfyn Llwyd.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Would the Prime Minister please confirm that the 22 to 50 billion euro annual payment to developing countries will be additional money and will not be raided from existing EU budgets?
We made it clear that the existing level of support for environmental projects in the Overseas Development Aid budget is about 10%, and will not go beyond that. And therefore, the money that we are putting towards climate change is additional. And I hope that all parties will feel able to agree to that, because otherwise poor countries will find that what they are doing in development is cut so that they can finance new investments in the environment. I think all parties have not yet come to that view, but I hope they will come to the same view as us.
Mr. Andrew Mackay.
Just why did the Prime Minister's notorious powers of persuasion fail to convince his European colleagues of the merits of Tony Blair's presidency?
So isn't it typical of the Conservative Party? They can only ask questions about personalities. The office, the presidency of the Council is not yet set up as a position. The Lisbon Treaty has not yet gone through. Once the Lisbon Treaty has gone through, which I hope it will, and will be ratified, these are the matters that we can discuss.
Greenway.
Mr. Speaker, can I bring the Prime Minister back to the issue of enlargement? Wouldn't he agree that it's not just the accession of Croatia, but also other Balkan countries and Turkey, which could actually help to bring about many of the items which were in the discussion which is reported to us today? Energy supply, fight against terrorism, but above all else, making Europe a more secure and safe continent for all of us.
He's absolutely right, and I agree with him. The only difficulty that his party faces is because there are 27 countries in the European Union, we have had to have a new treaty so that we can deal with the institutional mechanisms necessary for the governance of that European Union. So I hope at the same time as supporting enlargement, he'll support the measures that are necessary to make enlargement work.
Mr. Andrew Riverton.
The Prime Minister thinks people would be more likely to believe what he has to say about matters such as climate change if he kept his promise to have a referendum on the EU Constitution, now renamed the Lisbon Treaty. And could you tell us what his moral compass tells him about that broken promise?
Mr. Speaker, I reported to the House that the constitutional concept had been abandoned as a result of the talks that led to the treaty. The House voted on this issue of a referendum on the treaty itself. The Conservative Party voted in favour of a referendum on this treaty. The Leader of the Opposition gave a cast iron guarantee that he would have a referendum. At the same time, the opposition, let's be clear, have voted that they wish to withdraw from the social chapter and European employment legislation, but for that they would need the support of 26 other members of the European Union. From what I saw when I was in Brussels this week, there was very little support for the position of the Conservative leader.
Mr. Peter Bowe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What keeps the Prime Minister awake more at night? Is it my right honourable friend from Witney becoming Prime Minister, or Tony Blair becoming President of Europe?
Mr. Speaker, I sleep very well at night, but I have to say to them that it would be in Britain's national interest to have a former Prime Minister of our country as President of the European Council, and I think the Conservatives are making a mistake if they want to send out a message to the rest of Europe that they do not want a British person to hold this job, and presumably want someone from another country to hold this job, presumably also someone that holds a federalist position in Europe. I think the Conservatives should go back to the drawing board on this and think again.
Elliot Morley.
Can I warmly welcome the outcome of the Council on Climate Change and the very clear lead that it's given, and I also pay tribute to my right honourable friends in that. Those funds are going to be an essential part of any kind of agreements coming out of Copenhagen. But there's also a real potential for a low-carbon economy here in this country, in my own region. And in terms of the trade talks that my right honourable friend mentioned, I wonder if thought has been given of such things as reducing VAT in the Eurozone, reducing tariffs for low-carbon products for the benefit of our country, Europe and developing countries.
Well, he's absolutely right that huge progress can be made towards a low-carbon economy, particularly as countries come out of recession. They can invest in the low-carbon technologies of the future. Europe has agreed to sponsor and to help finance carbon capture and storage, and it's very important that we have some of the demonstration plants, and we're trying very hard to make sure that Britain has a number of these for future years. At the same time, he's absolutely right that we can look at how we can do more to promote low-carbon goods and services, and that will certainly be one of the items that will be discussed at Copenhagen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister is perfectly right to emphasise the leadership given by the European Union over many years now in confronting global warming, reducing carbon emissions and other greenhouse gases. Can I ask him, can I plead with him to continue his unremitting efforts to ensure that after the Copenhagen Conference on Climate Change, there is indeed another protocol to follow upon that of Kyoto?
I'm grateful to my honourable friend. He has been one of the leaders in strengthening our relationships with the European Union. And I can say that during the course of this week, I'll be meeting Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General of the United Nations, and then Mr. Rasmussen, the Prime Minister of Denmark, so that we can move forward our negotiations for a climate change deal in Copenhagen. Britain is determined to do everything that we can to make possible a deal in Copenhagen, and it was our original proposal on finance that has commended itself to the European Union. We will continue to press forward to ensure we make the maximum possible progress to get a deal at Copenhagen.
Clive Efford.
Speaker, can I draw my right honourable friend's attention to the issue of the use of hydrofluorocarbons alongside dealing with CO2 as part of a European-wide agreement? It is absolutely essential that we deal with these. By drawing this matter to his attention, can I urge you to discuss this with the Secretaries of State for Environment and Climate Change in order to ensure that we get some European-wide agreement on a reduction of this? I don't expect him to give a detailed answer on that now, but I do want to draw it to his attention and urge him to discuss it.
Well, I'm grateful to him. The Environment Minister is sitting near me, and she will talk to him about this very matter in a few minutes.